Is Tim Walz actually retarded? Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to the Gateway Pundits DC Dive. I hope you had a happy Thanksgiving weekend, or whatever the liberals call it nowadays. I really don't know. Screw them. Diving in, we had a lot of news over the weekend and last week, actually, some unfortunate news. But for our top story on Monday from the Gateway Pundit, our founder Jim Hoft reports Minnesota scandal explodes. Over 480 DHS employees accuse Governor Tim Walz of orchestrating a massive cover-up, retaliated against whistleblowers to shield Somali illegal fraud ring that stole over $1 billion. Now, it turns out, according to Minnesota State Department of Human Services workers, DHS, Tim Walz orchestrated a cover-up of the billion-dollar fraud scheme to protect his illegal aliens in Minnesota. Walz not only ignored the fraud, but actively retaliated against employees who alerted Minnesota to potential fraud. This comes after 7 defendants were charged in a $40 million fraud scheme, and 5 were found guilty. But the FBI is still investigating an attempt by a Somali woman to bribe one of the jurors with $120 in cash. Tim Walz, though, he doesn't want to blame these poor African aliens. He says it's lazy. The reason behind this fraud is that Minnesota is so successful that it attracts criminals. Watch.
Dozens of people of East African descent have been charged, convicted, and sentenced for stealing more than $1 billion in taxpayer money from government programs during COVID. As you know, Governor, that is more than Minnesota spends each year to run its Department of Corrections. So I want to give you a chance to respond to this. Do you take responsibility for failing to stop this fraud in your state?
Well, certainly I take responsibility for putting people in jail. Governors don't get to just talk theoretically. We have to solve problems. And I will note, it's not just Somalis. Minnesota is a generous state. Minnesota is a prosperous state, a well-run state. We're AAA bond rated, but that attracts criminals. Those people are going to jail. We're doing everything we can. But to demonize an entire community on the actions of a few, it's lazy.
And there is right there admitting guilt. He says, I'm responsible for putting people in jail, but he's not putting people in jail. He's actually covering it up. He's sweeping it under the rug, and he's retaliating against people who are trying to expose the fraud. He's, quite frankly, a retard. And I'm not the only one saying that. He's also a friend of school shooters. He says, I'm a former educator. I'm a parent. Yeah, whatever. And I'm friends with school shooters. That's what he said in the debate up against JD Vance. Coming up next, more on the retarded governor. But first, a message from District Copper. In our last spotlight, we introduced District Copper, trading under CXPF in the U.S. and DCOP in Canada, as a rising force in North America's critical minerals sector. District Copper is gaining traction in North America's critical minerals sector. The company has announced a strategic partnership with Reacher Gold LLC, a Nevada-based exploration firm focused on copper, gold, and silver. This marks District Copper's entry into the U.S. metals market, leveraging high-potential assets with historical production and existing infrastructure. The move aligns with the U.S. government's push to secure domestic critical minerals sources, including copper, rare earths, and lithium, to bolster national security and supply chain resilience. Washington has recently invested in Canadian mining firms like Trilogy Metals, which saw its stock surge over 200% after a $35.6 million U.S. government investment for a 10% equity stake. District Copper's binational strategy, combining its Canadian copper keg project with new U.S. assets, positions it uniquely in this geopolitical landscape. Partnering with Reacher Gold, known for sourcing undervalued U.S. assets, aims to fast-track development and unlock near-term production. With project progress at Copper Keg, a U.S. listing, and the strategic partnership, District Copper listed on the U.S. Stock Exchange under CXPF, and the Toronto Stock Exchange under DCOP could be the next big name for investors. The stock shows significant upside potential. Don't overlook it. And a special thanks to District Copper for sponsoring today's video. Check out the link in the description or go to districtcoppercorp.com for more on their U.S. partnership and future prospects. Now, for our next story, I reported over the weekend, LOL, seriously retarded, in quotes, Governor Tim Walz says being called a retard by Trump is a, quote, badge of honor. Now, Tim Walz actually said this. Watch.
Look, Donald Trump insulting me is a badge of honor for me, but I think we all know, as both as an educator for a couple decades and as a parent, using that term is just so damaging. It's hurtful.
Now, this comes after President Trump said on Truth Social on Thursday on Thanksgiving, quote, "This refugee burden is the leading cause of social dysfunction in America, something that did not exist after World War II. Failed high schools, high crime, urban decay, overcrowded hospitals, housing shortages, and large deficits, etc. As an example, hundreds of thousands of refugees from Somalia are completely taking over the once great state of Minnesota. Somalian gangs are roving the streets looking for prey as our wonderful people stay locked in their apartments and houses, hoping against hope that they will be left alone. The seriously retarded governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, does nothing, either through fear, incompetence, or both." And then on Sunday, the president actually doubled down when reporters tried to say, "Oh, that is so offensive of you to say. A lot of Americans find this offensive." He said, "There's just something wrong with him." Watch.
Tim Walz, and you call him what many Americans do find an offensive or retarded. Do you stand by that claim of calling Tim Walz retarded?
Yeah, I think there's something wrong with it. Absolutely, sure.
Because you don't
You have a problem with it? You know what? I think there's something wrong with it. Anybody that would do what he did, anybody that would allow those people into a state and pay billions of dollars out to Somalia. We give billions of dollars to Somalia. It's not even a country because it doesn't function like a country. It's got a name, but it doesn't function like a country. Yeah, there's something wrong with Walz.
Oh, that is so offensive for you to say, Mr. President. I mean, do you have any regrets over saying no? There's something wrong with him. I think he's retarded, Trump says. It's actually hilarious. It reminds me of if you've ever seen The Benchwarmers, a great movie from, back in the day. I mean, back when I was young, back when, some of you watching this were a little younger. They say retard every 2 minutes of the show. And it was great comedy back in the day. You could actually say words. Free speech was a thing. Thankfully, I think President Trump is bringing free speech back. You could say the word retarded. Not actually, degrading people who have mental disabilities necessarily, but, your friend's being an idiot, you go, "Hey, you freaking retard." And it's that's just how most of us were raised. It's kind of colloquial English, if you will. And coming up next, our next story, Joel Gilbert reports for the Gateway Pundit. Eric Swalwell's last stand, a frivolous lawsuit to distract from his disqualification for California governor. Now, Swalwell, like many other Democratic politicians, Adam Schiff, Letitia James, I think Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook, and a little less known Ruben Gallego, the senator from Arizona, Swalwell declared a fraudulent primary residency, claiming that his primary residence was in Washington, D.C., despite representing California. Now, of course, they do this so that they can secure a lower mortgage rate, more favorable loan rate. And it's kind of a problem because the rest of us Americans, we want a more favorable loan rate, but we can't get it on a secondary house. We can't get it on a house we don't occupy as a primary residence. Ruben Gallego, he fraudulently got a VA loan for a secondary home in Washington, D.C., despite representing Arizona. That's a different story. But Swalwell recently released a video championing his fight against so-called political persecution, as if, he's the only victim of this, as if Trump didn't go through this on the campaign trail, as if it's some new witch hunt that he's facing. Watch.
I've decided to go on offense. Donald Trump is weaponizing the Department of Justice against his political opponents. In fact, you've probably seen lately, they're going after the mortgages of Adam Schiff, Tish James, Lisa Cook from the Fed Board, and now me, and it's all nonsense. It's because I've been a vocal critic against the president. I'm one of the only surviving lawsuits against him for what he did on January 6th. I was an impeachment manager, and I'm leading the effort in Congress today on January 6th to make sure they don't rewrite it. I'm not going to let him retaliate or make me go silent for what he is doing in our country. The only side of the ball I ever want to be on is offense, so I have brought a privacy suit and a First Amendment retaliation suit against the administration. That's the only language they understand. I hope you take a look at it, and I hope it telegraphs that what Democrats are going to do when we're in the majority and when we have more blue state governors is be on offense and hold them accountable.
Oh my God. The Trump administration's going after my mortgage fraud. We need to hold them accountable. Not us, because we're representatives in the United States Congress. We don't have to be held accountable. Coming up next, we're going to discuss Trump amping up pressure on Venezuela, but also Washington. First, I want to say, ladies and gentlemen, I'm thrilled to announce my enthusiastic endorsement of Blackout Coffee, a company that embodies the heart of American values. This family-owned business began 7 years ago in a humble garage, and today they've earned over 32,000 five-star reviews for their premium bold coffee. And our great international correspondent for the Gateway Pundit, Paul Saran, he reports that, quote, Trump gave Venezuela's Maduro an ultimatum: resign and leave or face consequences. Fox News has more.
Venezuela denounces and condemns the colonialist threat that seeks to undermine the sovereignty of its airspace, constituting a new extravagant, illegal, and unjustified aggression against the people of Venezuela. Here to discuss is Florida Congresswoman and member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Maria Salazar. Kind of rich for Maduro to talk about the aggression against the Venezuelan people coming from that regime, right?
Well, that's what these Latin American thugs, dictators, caudillos do all the time. Look at Noriega, look at Fidel, look at Chavez. But, the Venezuelans are waiting for the Americans to come and help them be free again and be free from drugs and everything that Maduro regime has brought to them for the last 25 years.
So there was a call between President Trump and Nicolas Maduro very recently. What do you think happened, or what do you know? I'm sure you have more information than most.
Yeah, well, President was gracious and offered a way out. And Maduro is being instructed by the Cubans, don't go, because that's Maduro's biggest fear, that the Cubans, who are really the one calling the shots, are going to kill him before he leaves. So Maduro is...
The Cubans or the narcos? Or the narcos? Who's going to kill him?
The narcos, well, anyone. But the Cubans are the ones who are running the repressive apparatus, and they have been running it for the last 25 years because, that comes from Fidel's book. And Maduro is very afraid of them. But look, for those Americans who are watching this show, this is a historical moment for the Trump administration. Not only Trump is demonstrating, and I say it from the bottom of my heart, he's not only demonstrating great political courage, he's liberating the continent from China, from Iran, from Russia, from the drug dealers. This is going to send a very clear message to other countries. And we're going to avoid a lot of problems in the future because of this action that he's taking right now. So I salute President Trump for doing this.
Now, Maria Salazar, total rhino, don't take this as an endorsement of her. She's the one sponsoring this amnesty bill for millions of illegal aliens who are here working to receive work permits and keep them in our country. Now, but I don't doubt that she knows her stuff about South America. Of course, she is I think she's a Cuban refugee. At least her parents are. Now, obviously, this pressure on Maduro, it comes as President Trump has been threatening attacks on planes, closing the airspace of Venezuela. He said in a recent Truth Social to pilots, drug traffickers, human traffickers, let it be known the airspace above and surrounding Venezuela is closed. And President Trump is also threatening attacks on the ground in Venezuela. So this comes as the escalation against Venezuela, not just the drug boats in the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific, but he is putting some pressure on Venezuela. So it's an interesting story. We're going to keep following these developments on Venezuela and the southern drug traffickers in South America at the Gateway Pundit. So stay tuned for that. And for our last story, Riffs TV's Elisa Powell reports that Trump is ordering 500 more troops to D.C. after two National Guardsmen were gunned down in broad daylight on Wednesday. So there was tragic news on Thanksgiving Eve last Wednesday. Air Force Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf and Army Specialist Sarah Beckstrom were gunned down by a Biden refugee who was let into the country under the Operation Allies Welcome Program in 2021 following the failed withdrawal from Afghanistan under Biden, which left 13 service members dead. Now, this man's name, 29-year-old Rob Manula Lockenwall or whatever it is, some foreign terrorist from Afghanistan, a third world country. It's disgusting. I can't even pronounce his name. These are people that should not be in our country right now. If you can't, I would say if you can't pronounce their name, if they can't assimilate to our culture, they don't belong here. Okay, this is America, right? You could say, oh, we're a country of immigrants. Yeah, we're a country of a lot of European immigrants who came to Ellis Island, some Asian immigrants who came to Angel Island in California, but coming in third world refugees. No, we're not a country of third world refugees. We're a country of immigrants who actually built this country to make America great. Now, the Trump administration is actually putting a freeze on these aliens from third world countries. It's a good thing because they want to vet them. And of course, the left is up in arms over this. They're saying, oh, they don't want brown people here. Yeah, whatever. No, we don't want third world criminals here. We don't want them changing the national identity of this country, which is not criminals. It's not disgusting people who crap in the streets, who kill people, who sell drugs. No, we want civilized American taxpayers living in our country who are actually going to build something great. And that's going to be all for the stories today. I hope you join us tomorrow. My name's Jordan Conradson again. Stay tuned for the Gateway Pundit's DC Dive.